Hello, were you able to hear me? Okay, great. I did have one question. I did see the slides, and it did say there is a before FAQ section and an upcoming events section. So will you be speaking to that, or should I talk about that? Okay, perfect. That sounds good. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing good today. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Anisha. A little bit about me is that I'm currently a Master's of Information Systems student at Carnegie Mellon University. So it's kind of a long title, but it just means combining computer science and technology and design, which is a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today as well. And I'm also here with Crimson Education. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. I'll just share my screen and we should be good to go. All right, so today we're going to be talking about rapid prototyping with Figma. Figma is a tool that you might have heard of before. It's something that's really well known and used by so many people to prototype, especially people in the technology industry. And we're going to be talking about designing for user needs, what that means, and how you can incorporate it into your project and what you're doing as well. So a little bit about rapid prototyping. So if you've never really heard of the word rapid prototyping before and you're a little bit confused about like what it is and the components of it, that's what we're going to be talking about as well. So rapid prototyping is all about making something preliminary and leading it to the final result. So whenever you see an application, whenever you see a website, there's a lot of stuff that goes into like that website or app or product that is behind the scenes. And a lot of that has to do with the technology behind it, but there's also a huge component that has to do with the design behind it. So today we're focusing on that design component. So how can you make your product seem really great to users? How can you make it interactive and user-friendly? So in here, some of these components are one, designing for human-centered needs. What that means is that when you're designing an app and you're using it, you want the app to be able to be used by people. You want it to be interactive and fun, and you also want it to be easily accessible. When you yourself are using an app or website, sometimes I'm sure that some of you have looked at it and been really confused, or you can't really find where a specific button is, or you don't know how to navigate to a certain page on a website. That is all part of the problem solving process where you don't want that to happen when you're designing your application. You want it to be super easy for other people to use. And also you guys can, sorry, really quick interjection, you can ask questions in the Q&A. We will have a Q&A session at the very end in the last 10 minutes. So any questions you want, I'll answer at the end of today's session. So that's a little bit about designing for human-centered needs. Then we go on to UI, user interface. So two terms that you'll hear a lot now and in the future is UI and UX. UI stands for user interface. That is all about the interface that whoever's using your app is using. So for example, if you're using an app such as Uber, you're making sure that you are able to search up your address, you're making sure that you're able to pay through the app. That's all interface components. So when you're designing with Figma, you'll actually be creating the interface for the user. So you're going to be on the user end thinking, okay, if I was using this application, what would I see? What would I click on? What features do I need? And that ties into user experience. So user experience is all about the features, how easy they are to find. Are you able to find like the rideshare button? Are you able to find the pay now button on the Uber app? So things like that are definitely things that you want to think about and incorporate to make your application really good and useful. And of course, last but definitely not least is design and visual appeal. We will be talking a bit about that today as well. Figma is really good with design and visual appeal, not just the storyboarding for the app. So changing colors, changing fonts, making it all look very pretty. Of course, you're going to be more attracted to an application that is super good looking rather than one that's kind of like messy or the fonts don't really line up. So Figma is really good because you'll be able to see everything that the user will see on their end, so you can see whether it looks good or not. So we're going to talk about wireframing. Wireframing is something that is most commonly done through Figma. Wireframing is for applications. So there are two types of wireframes you can come up with. There's low fidelity and high fidelity, and I'm going to explain what each of these mean. A low fidelity wireframe is a very rough draft of a prototype. So if you're creating an app, maybe you want to show like where the screens go. Like if you click the home button, where that goes. If you want a title to be on your page, you put it on the page. Maybe you don't incorporate fonts, or you don't really incorporate like colors that much. You just want to make sure the flow of the application is very visible to the person who is creating it. And that would be low fidelity. So it kind of just means like a little bit like of a lower quality. And high fidelity is opposite. So that is when you make your wireframes very complex. It's a very detailed prototype. You have all of the feature functionality involved. You have everything that the user is seeing on their end. So it's most likely going to be more complete than low fidelity. If you're wireframing, I would recommend when you're creating like your prototype, you should go with lo-fi first and then go to hi-fi. And the reason for that is similar to like if you have ever seen an animated movie or an anime, what they do is they kind of storyboard out their process. So they take the script, the story, they draw it out, they make panels, and then only after that do the animators actually animate. And that's actually super, super similar to app development and app design, where you want to kind of storyboard out your app. So what are the screens going to look like? How many screens are there? What's going to be the title of each one? What text will be there? What buttons will be there? But you're not necessarily deciding the colors or the font or where the buttons are going to be on the screen yet. So once you kind of decide your storyboard with the low fidelity wireframe, then you can go into high fidelity, start making colors and designs and all sorts of stuff to make sure that your app looks good and runs smoothly. So a little bit about why we use Figma, because I'm sure that if you've done your research, you've seen that there's a lot of other sites you can use as well. Figma is one of the most popular that app developers use. I've also developed apps. I've used it firsthand and I honestly love it. So some of the reasons to use Figma are that it is very, very easy to learn. The learning curve is not big. Today we are going to be doing a little Figma demo where you guys can all follow along if you want, but you'll see that the interface is actually pretty easy to use. And I've also linked some resources at the end of this presentation that you can take a look at if you want to learn Figma on your own. YouTube is one of like the best places I go to learn. It's very, very easy. It's also very user friendly. So I know that we've talked about making your apps user friendly, but Figma as an app is very user friendly too. So they were really thinking about their users when they made it. You know where the buttons are. You can hover over anything to kind of see what it is or what it does. So it's really good. There's also a very wide range of features. So you can essentially make an entire app on there just without the code. So you can like click through things, you can preview things. It has really good features that you can use. It also has the collaboration tool for groups. So an important reason that you should use Figma is that if you are working in groups, you can share it with others, and that collaboration is going to be very helpful. And it also improves the application design process. So instead of you having to kind of like draw it out on a piece of paper, you can put it on a screen. You can make sure that it's looking like what it's supposed to, and then you can translate it into what your application will actually be. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do a little demo. We're going to go ahead and like create a basic wireframe in Figma. We're going to talk about a little about the layouts of the UI UX design, a couple of like prototyping tips and features that you could use, and of course, collaboration tools for teamwork. So since today is more demo heavy, because I think that it's better to show what Figma is and what it does rather than just talk about it for the entire time. If you have a computer with you, you can go ahead and follow along, or what you can do is kind of just like listen and take mental notes or physical notes, whatever you want, while I kind of like talk about this. So I want to go ahead and start with like the simple Google search. So if you go ahead and search for Figma, this is what pops up. And you can go ahead and like click on this first link. This is what it says. It's the collaborative interface design tool. So when you click on it, you can log in a few ways. I should already be logged in through Google. So if you want to log in through Google, you can do that. If you want to like create your own account, you can do that as well. So when you get in here, this is your main dashboard. So there's a lot of stuff that is going on here. Your recent apps are going to show on the bottom here. So there are a few of my recent apps that are showing up. You also have designer templates here. So Figma is used a lot for interfacing with websites, with apps, with other things like that. But it's also used for creating web flows, creating diagrams. So if I kind of like click the search on this and look at all the templates, there's actually a lot here. So there's like team meeting agendas here. There's like daily syncs. There's like product stuff on here. There's like even like a user flow over here. So there's just a lot of different things that you can look at in the templates. And if you also search these, there's a lot of different like things on the left here. You can click on diagrams, you can click on like brainstorming templates, and then you can click on like either one of these and you'll be able to kind of like put it on your screen and edit it any way you want. So these templates work like templates on any other website or Google Docs templates. It's very simple. So this is actually a good tool. Another tool I will talk about is actually called UX Crush. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, probably not, I'm gonna assume, but UX Crush is actually just a plethora of different Figma applications. So let's say that you're starting from scratch, but you're really struggling and you're not really able to like create your buttons or create a good layout from scratch, which is totally fine. Sometimes design is like really difficult. What UX Crush does is it has a bunch of Figma mobile app templates. So here are like concepts you can use for your next website. They have like applications, websites, and you can click on like any one of these and you're able to open it in Figma actually. So if I go ahead and click on like the delivery app concept, which I had opened before, I can go ahead and like scroll down here. It'll tell me a little bit about like what the app is and what the color combinations are. And if I click get it now, I will be able to actually open this in Figma. And I can click open in Figma right here at the top right. So if you haven't written down, UX Crush is definitely the way to go if you need templates, since Figma doesn't really provide like application templates. So you kind of have to get it like through here. But yeah, so if I open it, the delivery app will like pop up with all of its screens. And it's loading a little bit. And now we're on Figma. So it'll kind of complete loading here, and there we go. So this will show me like the cover screen here, and it shows me like the app if I zoom in here with all of the application screens. And as you see, this is super professional. So you can click on like, you know, any one of these screens and like edit whatever's on here in case you need to. So this is just a really good way of doing it. So let me X out of that. And what I'll do is go back to my dashboard and I can go ahead and create a design file. So on the top right, there's two things here. One is the FigJam board that's used more for like project planning and stuff like that. The other one is the design file. You can also import, which you probably won't be doing, but if you do somehow have a Figma file from like someone else, or you got sent a Figma file from like a team member, you can go ahead and import it once you save it to your computer. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and click plus design file. So over here is your design file. As you can see, it is very blank. So I'm going to go ahead and like go over some of the things that you can do in Figma here. The first thing obviously is you can like edit your title and you can like make this whatever you want. I'm just going to call it test 1, and this will be saved to your draft section. So if you click on your drafts, you'll be able to see like your previous projects, stuff you've saved, and it's all going to be in your dashboard. So as you can see, these are like all my projects and my drafts here. So yeah. Another thing you can do is in the prototype section, which is on the right here, this is kind of where you choose like your device. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is like create a iPhone screen or a device screen that I want to create my app on. So in order to do that, you're going to go to the top left, and there's a bunch of different icons here. If you hover over them, it's going to tell you what it is. This is like the main menu icon. We have like the mouse pointer here. You can even click on the arrow when you have like more functionality here. So this could be move or scale. Over here is going to be the framing that you're going to do, which I will talk about in a second. Here you have different tools like rectangle, lines. This is how you make your buttons, how you add different like shapes on there. There's also the pen and pencil in case you actually want to like draw on the screen if you have an iPad or like an Apple Pencil. This is how you add text. So pretty straightforward. You have extra resources here. So if you want to do anything like advanced in Figma that you learn about, you can just search for different components or plugins or widgets and you'll get them. You also have the hand tool to grab things. And lastly, you can make comments wherever you want on your dashboard. This is really good for collaboration because if you need to like make comments about another teammate's work without changing their work, this is the way to do it. So I'll go ahead and kind of like get started here. So what you're going to do is to create your first frame, which is kind of going to be like your iPhone screen or whatever screen you're using, you're going to go ahead and click this button and you can go ahead and click frame. And what that does now is it gives you a bunch of options on the right. As you can see, we have like a lot of iPhones from like 8 to 14. We have Androids. You can also scroll down. You have like tablets here, Surface Pros, desktops. So you can quite literally like do anything. You have paper, you have social media. I mean, there's so much. Like you can make an Instagram story with this. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. For now, I'm going to go ahead and click on phone, and I'm going to go ahead and maybe click on like iPhone like 13, or you know what, I'll just do like 14. I think that's fine. So now that I clicked on the iPhone 14, this pops up. And what this is it's my frame. And this is the accurate size for what the screen of the iPhone 14 is going to look like. Yes, this looks a little weird and you're probably like, it's kind of long, but that is what the accurate sizing is. And if I were to like add another frame here and maybe do something else, I can click on like tablet or desktop and it gives me the accurate sizing. And that's exactly what I want, because obviously like if I'm creating a prototype, I want it to fit whatever screen I'm trying to create. They also have website prototypes. So if you're not creating an app and you're creating a website instead, you can go ahead and click like desktop or computer or whatever the website options are, which are just any computers. So yeah, so this is what my frame looks like. And now what I'm going to do is add stuff onto it. So this is kind of the beginning of my app. And as you can see here, I have like a couple of example apps open. So this is also made with an iPhone screen, and I'm gonna just zoom in here a little bit. This is like a sneaker selling app. So this is something that was also done in Figma. And over here, you can see that like all of the buttons and everything have been incorporated into the iPhone screen. So I'm gonna like do the same here. So on the screen, if I go ahead and click on it, on the right is going to be all of your editing tools. So there's stuff such as auto layout, which will kind of like put it on a certain part of your screen. You have the layout grid, and you're able to kind of like put a grid on here to align things. So if you want to align something like to the left of the grid, or you want to put a logo on your screen, you would click layout grid so that you can see like where the logo goes and make sure that it's the same exact spot every time so it doesn't move. So those are like just some lessons in professionalism to make sure that everything is like perfectly aligned. Down here, you get the fill. So if I want to like fill my screen a certain color, I can go ahead and click on any color I want. So right now, maybe I'll fill it like light blue or something. For now, I'll keep it like that. And I will take off the grid. And over here, you have stroke. So here we'll give you like a border. So now I have a border. You can change the stroke and the stroke color. So if I want to make that a different color for the border, I can change that to a different color. So let's say I change that to dark blue. Now my border is going to be dark blue. So whenever you want to change something, you're going to click on that element, make sure your element is clicked, and then you can change it. And there's also a lot of stuff that you can do with like, you can make it on the center, the outside, the inside, change the thickness. So if I want this to be like a greater thickness, I can kind of just click and drag. As you can see now, that border is really thick, so I don't really want that. Or maybe I want no border at all, and I put it back to 0. For effects, this is really good for buttons. So we're going to create a button today, but when you do create a button, clicking drop shadow will actually make it look really professional. And I would recommend that for a lot of the buttons that you create. I'm pretty sure there might be drop like a shadow button here, but either way, like they just make sure the button is pronounced. So it's just a good tip in general. And finally, you can export. So you can export like this entire wireframe as a PNG, or you can change the type. You can even export your entire Figma file as a PDF, which is really great as well if you want to share it or present it with someone at the end. So yeah, that's a little bit about like the design of your screen. Now that we have our iPhone screen, we want to add elements to it. We want to add buttons and make sure that we have a lot. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste so that I have two iPhone screens so that we can talk a little bit about buttons and how they're used. So what you can do is over here in the rectangle button, there's some stuff you could do. So if you're creating buttons, you could go ahead and like place an image or video on your screen and use that as your button, or you could go ahead and use like a circle or a rectangle. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'll just like put this on here. And as you can see, as I'm kind of like dragging this and my button is like highlighted, right now it says on the right, like what the properties are. So I can even go to prototype, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit of how to kind of make interactions with the button. But for now, I can change the fill. So I can like change it to whatever I want to match the screen. And obviously using complementary colors, I can kind of just do whatever I want with this button. And same thing for effects. I can go ahead and say drop shadow. Now the shadow's dropped, and it looks good. So this button can be used for anything. You can move it, like right now it is fixed. You can edit it to like fill the container, but as of now it's kind of like fixed to the left of this container right here. So what you can do is if you want to ever edit like the coordinates, the width or the height, you can always edit it here. This is like the best place to do it rather than clicking and dragging, since you're able to specify the number. And that way, if you're copy and pasting this button or you're creating something similar, you know what the number is. So now what I want to do is maybe add some text. So I'm going to add some text onto here. And maybe I'm going to go ahead and say, like back to home. You can add it on the button, like you can drag it, or you can kind of just like keep it wherever you want on the screen. Once again, this is fixed. So I would say that like the only bad thing with the prototypes where you're creating an iPhone is that most of the stuff that you're going to put on the screen is fixed, and you have to manually go in and like unfix it. So right now, for the sake of kind of like presentation, I'm just going to keep it here since it is fixed to the top left. But if you do ever want to just like create a screen with a rectangle, you can also do that. You don't have to like create this iPhone screen. Also, if you have a certain specification, a certain height and width that isn't in like an iPhone prototype, or it isn't in any of the prototypes that you've seen, you could just go ahead and draw out a rectangle and use that as your base. I've done that a lot of times. It really doesn't change anything except the fact that previewing might be a little bit different, but I've just drawn out a rectangle most of the time and consider that my iPhone. So you can also do that if you think that's easier for you. So yeah, so once you have this button, and I'll make this like smaller, let's say it's like a back button, we'll say that an arrow is there. What you can do is you can click on this and you can go ahead and go to prototype. And the prototype screen is going to give you a lot of different features. So you can either say show prototype settings, which is going to show your device, it's going to show your model, and you can change all of this. And it's also going to show your background. So when we preview it, it's going to have a black background, and it's the iPhone 14 as we made it. But if I go ahead and click on this button and I go to prototype, there is a couple things that we can do here. So the first thing is scroll behavior. So if you want something that's like fixed to your screen, right now you can say like fixed, stay in place, or you can say scroll with parent. So that means if you scroll, it's going to scroll with your scroll bar, or sticky, which is kind of like it stops at the top edge. So there's a couple of things you can do with scroll, which is really good because in a lot of cases, like you can't really use scroll when you're designing, but here scrolling is like pretty easy to do. There's also interactions. So if we click a plus on interactions, it kind of shows us this little menu, and we can kind of select what interaction we want this certain button to have. Right now it says on tap. So that means like if someone presses the button, what happens? We can even put drag. So if someone like drags it, or while it's hovering, what happens while the key is pressed, if the mouse like clicks enter, and there's a lot of different stuff here. So right now we'll say on tap. On a website prototype, it would say on click, but for now it says on tap because we're in an iPhone. So if I'm saying on tap, I can go ahead and say, okay, what do I want it to do? I want it to maybe go back to the previous screen, or I want it to navigate to the second screen. I can also decide to like set variables. So I can say like if button is like pressed, then this text pops up, or if this button is pressed, I want it to like go here. That's with like the conditionals and variables, but that stuff is a little bit complicated. The main thing you will be using in Figma is mainly the navigate to. So remember, if you want to press anything and you want it to navigate to another screen, you're going to go ahead and click on whatever it is, go to the prototype section that is next to design, and go ahead and add an interaction. So I'll click on this interaction and I'll say navigate to. Now it's going to give me options, which is really great. So it says navigate to, and I can go ahead and click whatever screen I want it to navigate to. So if I click iPhone 14-2, now it's going to navigate to the screen. As you can see, there is this arrow that is now being pointed, and you can even click and drag here and change it or make it the same. You can have it navigate to like another page or another like component if I like put it here. But right now I'm going to go ahead and set it to navigate to that second screen. So I'll go ahead and just do this one more time. Okay, there we go. So whenever you're navigating, your arrows are going to show up. This is really important because if I go to the preview, and hopefully this works this time. So I just clicked the play button on the top right to go to the preview, by the way, if you didn't see that. But when I go to like this preview, it now shows on a phone. And I'm going to go ahead and tap on this button on the top left. And now I'm on my second screen because the second screen was just blank and blue. So this is a really easy way to test out your device. As you can see, it looks like an iPhone. It behaves like an iPhone. I can go back to the previous screen and test out this button again, which works perfectly fine. So this is just a really easy way for you to kind of create things and make sure that, you know, it looks good and it is working well on your iPhone. And you can even click through it. So you can essentially create an entire application in Figma, which is just something really cool that you can do. So now I can kind of like go back to my other tab. So if I want to also link the text, it's possible to do that. There's a little plus button here as well. And you can go ahead and click this plus and drag it anywhere. So let's say I want to drag it to the screen, and it's just going to confirm for me, navigate to iPhone 14-2, which is my second screen. The name of the screen pops up right here if you were confused about that. So that's something really important as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about like the basics of designing with Figma. And the easiest part about this is just that you can literally change anything. You can navigate to anything. So I would say that like if you need any help with Figma, my main source, and I will actually talk about this, so I can go back to here, and let me just go to the learning sources slide. So Figma actually has its own YouTube channel, which is super cool. So if I go ahead and I'm just going to click on this link, it'll go ahead and bring me to Figma's YouTube channel. There we go. So they have a bunch of subscribers. They have a lot of different stuff here. And if I go to videos, I mean, there's like so many tutorials on like everything. So they have like Figma design for beginners, like what to do with Fig Jam, and all of these like tutorials are relatively, they're not crazy long, they're really good, using variables and prototypes, advanced prototyping. So if you ever need help, you can go to the direct source. And at the same time, if you go to playlists, they actually have a bunch of playlists. So if you ever want to get a certain topic, like for example, introduction to design systems or tips and tricks, things like that, like new to Figma, get started with Figma for beginners. So going here and kind of going through all the videos will definitely help you learn. This is one of the main things I used when I was learning. It's just a really, really good option. Some other sources here are over here, a UI UX beginners tutorial. So this is another video that I kind of included. This is just like a very beginner-friendly tutorial, and of course, ignore the ad, but the rest of it should be loading. There we go. So yeah, this this is a little bit about like 2023 UI UX design. This person is someone that I regularly watch, so this is also very good. But yeah, most of these are YouTube links. So prototyping basics, websites on Figma, all of this stuff you can find on YouTube. And the last one that, of course, I went over before would be UX Crush. So since that's not on there, I would definitely recommend to write that down. UX Crush will also allow you to look at the design of other people. So when you're kind of like looking at all of these mobile templates, you can look at the design and be like, what colors are they using? Like over here, they're combining black, white, and yellow, which is an interesting combination, but it works. Over here, it's like gray, white, and green. So you can look at the design, look at like the colors, like what do you like, what pops out to you, and then you can just like replicate that own design in your own application. So it's a really good way to see other people's work and also decide on what is something cool for you to implement. So these learning sources are just my go-tos, as well as UX Crush. So if you need any help, you can always go to like the Figma website, or you can go to their YouTube channel and you'll be able to get tutorials, or you can just Google up like how to do this in Figma and you'll be able to get it. So yeah, that's mainly like my portion for a little bit about the demo and how to create with Figma, as well as the learning resources. So I'm going to go on to the next slide and ask Oksana to take over here. Oksana, are you there?
Hi everyone, just quick remind for you all that our case will be released so soon in September 14th. And our deadline for original submissions will be on September 20th. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask them in our Q&A session, or you can join our Discord server, or ask them in our inbox and mail us on our inbox. So let's move for our Q&A session. If you have any questions, please ask them in our section.
All right, so yeah, and then lastly, just the upcoming events, and I do see some stuff in the Q&A, so I'll go ahead and start looking at that. So if you want to like ask questions in there, or you want to unmute and ask, you can definitely do that. So the first question I have is, what's the difference between creating an app with Figma and creating an app by coding it? And does Figma create websites as well? This is actually a really good question. So Figma is not for app creation, it's more for the design. So if you want to look at how your app is going to look like in the real world on an iPhone or a website, that's what Figma is used for. Coding is kind of like the basics of creating it. So like when you're coding the app and you're creating like a front end with your app, that's very different, since Figma is more of a planning tool. And when you're coding, you're actually creating the app. So what you would do is, if you're coding an app, you would design it on Figma if you want. And then based on your Figma wireframes, you can go into your code and start coding the front end of it. So again, just to clarify, Figma is like not for creation. You can't really like publish an app through Figma. It's more of just planning out the design of what the app is going to look like, which will make it easier to code or easier to create. Let's see. I think these two questions Oksana might know best. Are there any examples of successful project designs from last year? And can we submit a design of our app and our proposal through Figma? Oksana, do you want to take those?
Yeah, sure. About examples of successful projects or design, you can find them on our website on a section of resources.
And the other question was, can we submit a design of our app and our proposal through Figma? So I do not know that answer, but Oksana, you might probably know that.
Yes, about submitting design and app proposal for regional qualifications, you need to create a presentation with the solving problem that you will be given, and it can be like prototype made in Figma, but you make a save, you can save it in our I'm sorry. Yeah, you can save them as a PDF, how it was said, and add in your presentation. Any other questions?
I think the sign up link one, they said, is there a sign up link for the event on September 10th at 12:18?
Yeah, all links are on our websites and Discord server. I will send a link to register for upcoming webinar that will be held tomorrow in our chat. And any other questions? No. So guys, if you have any questions, please text them.
Yep, I don't see anything else so far. Oh, actually, there might be one more. Yeah, this is also for you, Oksana. Where should the presentation be done in any specific format?
The presentation should be done in any reductor, like it can be either Figma or PowerPoint. Requirements for presentation is that it have to be 6 slides without appendix. Appendix can be maximum, I think, 5 slides, and it should include problem that you identified and a decision that you have made, and you can either submit it in a presentation form or in a document.
And another question we have for you is, do we submit our app's code? So I guess more of an elaboration on that is, do we submit the whole code for the app? If so, how do you send it?
Yes, you can submit your code as a GitHub. You can submit it additionally with your presentation. And
we also have, what do you mean by appendix?
Appendix is additional information that you can refer during your narrative or for your main presentation. I mean, main 6 slides that will be included in your case, in your solution. During the narrative of these 6 slides, you can also refer to links to any graphs or your own notes that you have made during the research that will help you to prove their decision.
All right, and there's also another one. It says, when I try to search for the official hackathon website, I only find last year's results. Could you possibly share a link?
Yes, sure. Give me 1 second. I will find it and send in our chat.
All right, I don't see any more. Oh, actually, yes, there is one more. So this is also for you, Oksana. What all do you have to send for the submission if you're part of the coding team?
Yes, sure. For original qualifiers, you have to send presentation with your solution and GitHub or code in a form that you will code it. Yeah. For coding category, you have to also send code in GitHub or some app like this.
And we also have, can the designs be done in another program other than Figma? Oksana, do you know the answer to that one?
Sorry, could you please rephrase the question?
Yeah, it's just, can the designs be done in any other programs other than Figma?
Yeah, sure. You can use even Canva, your app, your submission, just have to show your solution and how it works.
And then there is a multi-part question, which is the last one. It's kind of long to read, so if you want, you can probably read that, but it's more about the competition, so you'd probably know best for that.
Yeah, okay, sure. That's also thing. No, your presentation should include either your plan, your implementation, your solution of a problem that you will be given, and also showing your app, your final result. It can be everything, it have to be in one document. And the second one must be completed. You can change, you can correct, and give me 1 second, please. Your prototype for the qualification round, due date for qualification round is 20th of September. You have just to provide to us presentation with 6 slides that will show solution of your problem. Another one question about font and size of the fonts in presentation. There is no specific requirements for font and design in the presentation. It's just word limit for all 6 pages of your PDF file have to be 750. And the last one, this presentation have to be recorded. So about presentation, it have to be 6 PDF slides. No, for qualification round, you just have to submit your presentation and your video submission with describing why have you decided to make this decision for provided problem is will be required and after qualification round. No, 750 words is the limit for 6-page solution in PDF. I think we don't have any questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any more. So yeah, I think that, oh, actually, yes, there is one more. It just says for the qualification round, we need to provide the slides without the Figma design code. Oksana, do you know the answer for that one?
I'm not sure for now I can answer this question. You can ask it in our Discord and we will answer it on our Q&A session in Discord.
All right, so yeah, I think that's it for now then. I don't see any like new ones. So yeah, thank you all for attending. And of course, like Oksana said, if you have any other questions about Figma or the process, you can just ask in that chat. You should be able to get an answer. So I think then we're good to close out for today. Oksana, do you have like any like final announcements or anything else that you wanted to say?
Yes, I wanted to announce that we have a few upcoming webinars that we're holding today and on September, or I mean yesterday, also we have 2 other webinars. So if you want to attend them, even if it's not your category, you can sign up for them and attend. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anisha, for holding this amazing informative webinar for all of us. And yeah, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.